Good morning. Today we have a very exciting meeting. We have our very own Michael Johnson comes in and he's gonna go over the commercial real estate. So we're very excited. Before we begin, we'd just like to go over our vision statement. In an industry where most companies focus on the average agent, Realty Executives All Cities is the company with the systems and tools designed for the productive real estate professional, maximizing their potential for success and ensuring a superior experience for the customer. So, Michael, why don't you come in and lead us into the commercial real estate?
Absolutely. Does everybody have a handout?
Yeah.
Because we're gonna go a little bit quicker than usual, because we want to wrap up at 12 o'clock. So we're gonna make this very interactive. If you have any questions, just raise your hand, let's go for it. Commercial right now is a very good market. The reason I like commercial because it doesn't have as much competition as residential, but it means that you do have to know a little bit more about the terminology and also the formulas in order to make commercial work properly for you. So we were talking about farming before the session, and we can always ask Sean for a farming package. There is no door knocking on commercial, but there is a lot of communication, telephoning, things like that, okay? So let's just go ahead and let's move forward. What I want to do, the goals of this class is to gain enough knowledge to engage conversation with prospective commercial investors and to understand basic capitalization rates, growth rate multipliers, and terminologies, okay? So let's get going. Let's talk about what commercial is not. Commercial is not a primary residence, okay? That is not commercial. What commercial is multifamily, 5 and up, office buildings, residential income, residential properties, 1 to 4, retail, industrial land, and special use properties. Here's something that's common within all investment properties. Number one, they're held for investment. They're not flips. Whenever people buy investment property, they hold investment property for cash flow and for appreciation. They all have income, expenses, cash flow, depreciation. The methods of evaluation is always a GRM or a cap rate or possibly comparable properties, and they're all vulnerable to economic changes. So what is the benefits of buying commercial? One benefit is the dependable source of income. You have rental agreements. If you're talking about large commercial properties that have what they call anchor tenants, such as the Macy's and Sears and JCPenney's, those leases run for a long time. They run 10, 15, 20, 25 years. So you have very dependable sources of income. Number two, you have capital appreciation. Right now, California is running about 7.43% of appreciation, which is a great, great thing. Diversification, which means that you don't just have to buy apartment buildings. You can buy commercial, you can buy land if you wanted to. So you can really be diversified. Stability and value, commercial properties are doing nothing but going up. That's all they're doing. So it's very, very stable in value. You have potential tax advantages, such as the 1031 deferred tax exchanges, what we'll talk a little bit about today. And the last thing is a hedge against inflation. Does anybody really know what that means? Hedge against inflation? Can I get some feedback?
Is that when the rent supersedes the inflation?
That's right. Did you hear what he said? The rents are always going up. Have you noticed that rents are really going up now? That's right, especially in California. It's very, very challenging to buy affordable properties, so people are choosing the rents, and the landlords are having a field day because they're just going up and up and up. So why commercial? It's the last to get hit in the recession and the first to come back. So back in 2008, when we had the major recession, single families got hit really bad. The commercial market, not so bad, okay? But what happened, it got even better when the foreclosure started to hit. Then the commercial really came back strong because the people who lost their properties had to go rent, you know? Capitalization rates return are very good. Let me talk about that real quick. The cap rates aren't as good as they used to be because so many people are flooding the commercial field because the banks are not returning a good return on their investment. You know, you put your money in the bank, but you can get a 0.5%, if that. So what happens with commercial now, there's so many people going after commercial, the cap rates aren't as good as they used to be. They used to be about 5, now they're about 2.3, 2.4. But if you start talking about depreciation, repairs, principal reduction and everything, your overall return is still a good 5 or 6%. So it's still a really good deal. Apartment buildings, like I said, from 2 to 5%. Retail is about 6.5. Retail meaning your actual retail commercial, such as you see the Macy's, the strip centers, the malls, all that stuff. You got office buildings at 7%, and your industrial is about 7%. So we're looking good. So let's talk a little bit about the capitalization rate. The cap rate is the way that we actually value property, commercial property, because in commercial property there's not a lot of comparables. You know, like this office building right here, you're not gonna go next door and find an office building just like it. As a matter of fact, you're not gonna find an office building nowhere in the area like this building. So therefore, comparables don't really work. That's why you have to know the cap rates and the GRMs. The GRM, that's the next thing. You get the rent, and it's a very quick and dirty way in order to calculate value, and we'll get to that. There's 2 types of gross rent multipliers. There's one that's the gross rent multiplier, there's the other one that's the gross income multiplier. Don't be fooled, because sometimes you got these very knowledgeable agents that try to sell their property on the gross income, and we're not interested in that. Watch out for that. We're interested in the gross rent multiplier. Okay, cap rate. What is a cap rate? The cap rate is a rate of return expected by the investor. It's kind of like the interest rate in the bank. When you go to the bank, you want a certain interest rate. As an investor, you want a certain interest rate as well. The gross rent multiplier is the amount of rent that is measured by the multiple months. So therefore, if you got $1,000 rent times 12, that's 12,000. Then if you want a 5 multiplier, then that's about 60,000, something like that? We'll go through it. We'll make sure that you guys understand it before it's all over with. Gross income multiplier pretty much works the same way. It's the value of the property measured with how many times the annual rent. Okay. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you're a seller, you want to sell your property with a low cap rate, all right? But the seller always wants a high GRM. The reason the seller wants that is because he can sell his property for more money. But the buyer wants the opposite. The buyer wants a high cap rate and a low GRM. Of course, if you buy a piece of property, you want the highest return on interest that you can get, right? So therefore, that's always going to be an interesting aspect. So when you list property, of course, your seller is going to want, I want a very high GRM, okay? And you're going to have to work with them from there. Gross rent multiplier, gross rent income, okay, we know what that is, capitalization rate. All right, so what actually makes up a cap rate? Well, there's a couple of things. Number one, you have to have your income, which we call the total operating income. I'm going to show you guys how to calculate that in a moment. Then you're going to have your operating expenses. Now, this is very interesting because when you're looking through the MLS and you see that there's a property for sale in the expenses, you can pretty much quickly tell if that expense number makes sense or not. The reason you can tell is because if that number is not 30 to 35% of the net operating income, the total operating income rather, then you know that they're going to be off. So you have to watch that. So, because sometimes agents want to make their property look good, so they'll give you a very low expense number. And that's the first indication that they're a little bit off, okay? So what happens is very easy. You take your total net operating income, you subtract it from your expenses, and voila, you got your net operating income. From there, you can calculate price, cap rate, and all that other good stuff, okay? All right, am I going too fast? We good? All right, let's roll. So, gross scheduled income, what is that? Gross scheduled income is all the rents that's coming in. Okay, so that includes basically just your rent. Not your laundry income, not all of that yet, just your rent. Then you have something called a vacancy factor. In California, pretty much the vacancy factor is 5%. Now, what the banks are gonna do, if they're gonna loan you money, they're always gonna take a vacancy factor if the property is vacant or not. Banks don't care. They're still gonna take a vacancy factor each and every time.
Do they use 5 or 10, Mike?
5%. 5%. Economic vacancy factor, does anybody know what that is? Okay, an economic vacancy factor means what I had to do in order to rent this property, I had to give away a month of free rent. Anybody remember that back in the day? Where back in the day, when the market was really good, it was difficult to rent our properties. So the landlord would give a month or two of free rent. But that's actually a vacancy factor, but it's called an economic vacancy factor, okay? Net rental income, that's what happens after you take the vacancy factor from the gross scheduled income. Your other income is income that's aside from the rental income, such as your laundry income, your parking income. Anyone else can come up with any other ideas? Storage income. Anyone else? You know, sometimes, you ever seen these signs that's posted in people's properties, it's billboards? Right, okay, absolutely, billboards. So, you have other income that helps support the profit. And that gives you your total operating income. And, we're gonna go through what the operating expenses and what the net income is. Okay, let's go. Gross scheduled income is the total scheduled rental income, I went over that. Other income, for example, is laundry income, utilities, late fees, went over that. Oh yeah, late fees are part of that as well, okay? Okay, I got one for you guys. What about cannabis? Is cannabis part of other income? It depends, right?
If you have a
Since if you're licensed, you know, that used to be a joke, but it's not funny anymore.
Like a home business?
Yeah, exactly, you know, so, hey, you know what, I understand, because I was that, they're actually trying to use some of that income, you know, you go out, you buy a property that people are trying to grow cannabis now, they're using the income to value the property.
Oh, yeah, so right now in commercial, they call it the green zone. So anything that is in a green zone, your cap rate, is not the same because you could get a lot more rent.
That's
in the
right.
Green zone.
That's
So
right,
what they call it.
absolutely, so now, you know, you guys got the cannabis happening in, yeah, the money zone, right? Absolutely, so there you go, it's another form of income storage fees that you guys got. Okay, let's talk about the rent roll real quick. What happens whenever, and this is really where the rubber meets the road, guys, whenever you start looking at your property, you wanna look at your rent roll. Okay, you always wanna ask the listing agent, let me see the rent roll. Why is that? Because your rent drives the price. The rent drives the price. And you have to be careful that they're not over inflating the rent. So here's a good way to catch them if they are. Number one, you want to look at what they call the current rent per square foot. In this particular example, if you look at the top line, you see that the current rent per square foot is $1.81, okay? Now, it's very easy to do some rental comparables in the area and find out what the rent per square foot is. Because if it's out of line, then you can quickly see that they overinflating the rental price. You don't want to do that. You always want to make sure that the rental price is correct, okay? So here you see we have an example of about $10,220, plus you have another $200 for garage income. So your gross schedule is about $125,000, okay? Everybody got that? Pretty easy, pretty easy. So let's talk a little bit about the vacancy factor, which is 5%. Whenever the bank is going to give you a loan, they're always going to take the vacancy factor of 5%, but they never will really look at the economic vacancy whatsoever, okay? Which gives you your net rental income. So you got your gross scheduled income, subtract your vacancy factor, that gives you your net rental income. Real easy, okay? Here's an example of what it is. There's your market rent, less than 5%. Gives you your, less your economic vacancy, which is 0 in this particular case. So your net rental income here is about $116,000. Now, after you get your net rental income, that's when you add on your other income. You don't add your other income plus your scheduled market rent. You don't combine the two, okay? The reason that you don't is because the garages could be taken away at any given time, okay? But this will always stay consistent. So this is your total operating income, which I call money in the bank. That will always let you know what it is, okay? Money in the bank, the actual money that you deposit in the bank is your total operating income. Everybody got it? Good. Operating expenses, this is the items that you write a check for. For example, do you write a check for vacancy?
Nope.
No, that's why it's not an expense. An expense is always something that you write a check for, a hard check. I want you guys to always remember tummy, because tummy, you can remember quickly what the expenses are. For example, T is for taxes, all right, you write a check for taxes. U is for utilities, you write a check for utilities. Maintenance, you gotta write a check for maintenance. Management, and also insurance. Tummy, T-U-M-M-I. So whenever you're looking at a building, if you remember those 5 things, you can always remember that those are part of your expenses. And these right here should equal close to about 30 to 35% of your net operating income. Okay, so what is net operating income again? It's your scheduled gross income subtract your vacancy factor, right? Gives you your net operating income. So therefore your expenses, and the bank is gonna look at this. If you're gonna get a loan, they don't care what their real expenses are. They're gonna take 30 to 35% of your net operating income in order to make the deal make sense for them. Okay? Now, what the real expense is, it is what it is. But as far as the bank is concerned, this is how they're gonna look at it. Okay? You good? All right. Determining net operating income is very easy. You got your total operating income. You're gonna subtract your expenses, and you're gonna come up with your net operating income. So in this case, I had 118,000. I'm subtracting 41,000 about, and I'm at 77,680. It's very easy. It's very easy to get your net operating income, because from there, we're gonna go to price, cap rates, and things like that, okay? So, here we go. So now, in order to get a cap rate, what you need to do is take your net operating income and divide it by the price. It's real simple, okay? So therefore, in this particular example, I've got a cap rate of 7.76, that's a good cap rate, by the way. So it's 7.768%. My net operating income was 77,000, and you put $1 million into that, you divide it this way, and you come up with your cap rate, all right? So, if the owner wanted a small, because remember what did I say about the sellers? They want a what? A lower cap rate, right? They want a lower cap rate. So therefore, in this particular case, if the sellers would say, you know what, that cap rate is too much, what would they do with the price? They would jack it up. They would jack it up. So therefore, if they say, I wanted about 3-4%, then they're gonna be charging about $2 million for the property, right? Everybody got that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so now if you know the price, and let's say, for example, you want to figure out, well, in this case, you know the NOI, and you know the cap rate. If you know those two, then you can figure out what the price is, okay? So you just have to know 2 of any one of these things in order to get the other. It's real easy. Now, why is this important to you? This is important because your buyer is going to tell you, I want a certain cap rate, or yeah, I want a certain cap rate, and you have to figure out how much you need to offer on that property. And the way that you need to find out what the offer on the property is that you got to know how to get to the NOI. If you don't know how to get to the NOI, you're going to be kind of lost. Okay? All right. Very good. And of course, if you want to know any one of these, as long as you know any of the 2, you can get to the third one. Okay? All right. This is my little drawing here. You can tell that I did this by freehand. But anyway, what happens, I like this because whatever I wanna find out, I just have to cover. If I wanna find out what the price is, then I gotta remember to divide the cap rate into the NOI. All right, if I wanna know what the cap rate is, then I just divide the price into the NOI. If I wanna know what the NOI is, I multiply the price by the cap rate. Little cheat sheet here, it's pretty cool, I use it all the time. All right, let's talk a little bit about growth rate multipliers. What growth rate multipliers is that it's the amount of rent that is multiplied by the amount of GRM. Now, remember what I told you, that the seller always wants a higher GRM. So therefore, if I have a 7 GRM, and the rent is, the annual income is $100,000, then if I use a 7 GRM, the value is gonna be $700,000, okay? Now, let me tell you something about GRMs. The lower the GRM, the more risk that's involved in the property, okay? Some people call it bread and butter areas. The higher the GRM, the less the risk. So therefore, if you start talking about Newport Beach, Beverly Hills, Belmont Shores, whatever, the GRM is gonna be very high, as high as 22, 21, 22. Newport Beach is extremely high. If you go to some of the other bread and butter areas, then the GRM is gonna go down. So therefore, it's very, very easy to calculate a price if you know what the GRM is in the area, okay? All right, any questions on that? I think you guys have this. I think you could. All right, any questions at all about what I went over? I know that was pretty quick, but any questions whatsoever?
Can we simulate a property so we could all, go along and figure out the cap rate and the GRM?
Absolutely, absolutely, that's a great idea. Martin, let's do that. Okay, so
So I got a scenario.
okay.
So let's say there's, three units.
Mhm.
Is, the first unit rents for 1,200, second unit 950, and the third unit for 3,000.
All right, somebody please
So-
add that up for me.
Is 5,150.
Okay,
So that you multiply by 12 to get the annual, right?
say it again.
That you multiply by 12, so you get the 61,800, so it comes up to 61,800.
That's right.
So from there you take the 30%, so you get the NOI, on the expenses, 30%.
Exactly, you take 30%, so is everybody following what he's doing? He has
Are you
5,000.
following?
How much is it?
It's 5,150
5,150.
gross rents.
Gross rent, and you multiply it by what?
By 12,
To get what?
the annual gross rents,
Gross
Just the-
schedule.
The gross schedule rents.
all right?
Then what do you do then?
Then you take 30% for the expenses. That's it.
Well, I think you're missing a piece there. So after you get your gross schedule, then what do you do?
Deduct the vacancy.
The vacancy factor, which is 5%. So what is that?
Percent, let's see,
$3,090.
There we go. So 3,090 from how much?
61,800.
Very good.
so,
Gives me what?
so 61,800 minus 3,090, you said, what is it? 3,090, that's 58,710.
Okay, so that's your,
NOI?
that's your total, right? That's your total,
Oh,
That's your-
now we still need the,
So look,
that's your total income, right?
that's your net.
Rafi, is that your total income?
Yes.
Okay, so now, so. That's how you catch them off guard. So, all right, so when you do that, then now, how much is your expenses?
let's say 30%, let's just
So
30%.
let's use 30%.
All right, so let's do 58,710 times. So 70% of that is 41,097.
Very good.
So that's the NOI, right?
That's right, so you subtracted the
The
expenses.
30%.
Yeah, so the expenses from the income, right?
Right, from the total income,
It gave you what?
41,097.
Everybody got that? Everybody see how you got there?
Yeah, but we didn't have any extra income.
No.
No,
There was
we
there
just
was
went-
no other income.
Yeah.
We just went to the basics.
All right, so now he has his NOI. Okay, so how would he get to his price? He has an NOI now.
Now,
All
the
right.
area that I'm looking at, I mean, right now, there's records setting on a lot of areas as far as cap rates. So for example, in an area, the cap rate is usually used to be 3 to 4%. Now we seeing them for 2.5%, and you know, the commercial brokers will brag about it. Oh, I just break the record on this area, I sold this building for a 2.5. You know, I've been seeing a lot of that, like for, you know, and Mike was correct, I saw that I was analyzing, they put for sale the commercial center on Signal Hill where the Home Depot and the Costco, and the cap rate was coming in around between 5 and 6. They want $60 million.
Jeez.
I had a client that was interested in create a syndicate to buy it, but the problem is that the Home Depot only renew it for 5 years, which is a bad, it's not a good thing because they have a brand new Home Depot on Atlantic, so I think they're planning to leave the sheep. So you know, that's not gonna work out. But you know, and then you know, from what he was saying, it's consistent with the market. We've been seeing normally 2.5 on residential apartment buildings, and on the nice shopping centers, about 5%. But it takes a lot of money to get there.
It does.
They're big deals.
So let's take Martine's number. What was your NOI?
41,097.
All right, everybody put that down, 41,097, okay. So I got my NOI, and what cap rate do I want?
Well, let's do 2.5 because
2.5. So if I have an NOI of whatever that number was, and I have a cap rate, if I want to get a 2.5 cap rate, how much money do I have to pay? This is a great example.
So let's
Let's say 3,
Can-
just to
So
round
we
the
got the
numbers off.
NOI, which is the
So I'm
41.
so I'm looking for price. I'm looking for price.
So we need to
NOI by cap rate?
divide the NOI by the cap rate?
That's right, because I'm looking for my price. So if my buyer says, okay, with that amount of NOI, I'll be happy with a 3% cap rate, you're gonna have to come up with the price. And so, Mr. Buyer, then you need to offer this amount. What's that number?
1,643,880.
What is it again?
1,643,880.
That's what I'm getting to.
That's what you have to offer. Okay? So if this price for this property is 2 million, and your buyer says, I'm only willing to, I want a 3% cap rate, then you know you have to offer 1.6 million.
We came up with a different number.
Well, that's 2.5% or 3?
That's
Two
right.
and a half.
3%.
No, 3, yeah, I'm sorry, I said 3%.
So it's at 3%?
So let's do 3%.
I did that 2.5%.
Okay, that's cool, that's cool, that's cool. Then let's do it at 3%.
Okay, so we got.
So what'd you
40.
come up with, Denise?
$1,369,900.
There you go.
Anybody else come up with that?
So therefore, if I want, so you see why, now this is a perfect example. You see why the seller wants a low cap rate, right? Because at 2.5, he's at 1.6, at 3%, I'm at 1.3, right? Okay, so there you go. There you have it. So therefore, that's what you always want to remember, because that was a good.
Okay, I'm not getting down, so let's, so it's,
I'm not getting the number, how do you?
yeah, so you got 41,097,
It's up here, right?
right,
Divided
Divided by
So you divide that?
0.03.
by the 3.
by point,
0.03.
0.03.
3%.
0.03,
Just hit 3%.
1.3,
690.
Got it.
0.369,900.
You got it, Melanie?
It wasn't 2.5%?
well, you know, we could check.
That number, the 41,097
Mm-hmm.
divided
So,
Yeah.
time, no,
Divided
divided,
But it's divided by 3%.
3, and then hit your percent sign on top, right there. Equals 136,999. That's it.
Got it?
But
Okay.
you guys see how like just a half of a cap
Yeah.
makes a big difference.
I mean, a half of,
300,000.
percentage is $300,000,
Pocket change.
right? Okay, let's go to a real life scenario here. I wanna check and see how sharp you guys really are, because I know that.
Jose's listening, the one in Leywood.
Yeah, let's,
The cap rate is high.
Okay,
that'll be a good one.
this is a good
Yeah,
one.
this cap rate
Oh,
is really good.
This is really good. All right, guys, I'm pulling this up. I want you guys to analyze it quickly for me. There it is. Okay, let's analyze this quickly. Looks pretty nice to me so far. I got 6 units with 2,700 square feet. So, quickly, how many about square footage per unit?
6,
$450
small,
each,
4.
$450 each,
Number one, what did I tell you?
yeah.
Small unit.
That's the whole,
Small
that
unit.
picture is the whole unit.
Yes.
Might be a bathroom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So off the top, I'm saying, okay, I'm dealing with small units, right? You know that. Okay, let's see what else we got. What's the square footage of the land, of the lot? 6,700 square feet. Okay, so I got some backyard, yada, yada, yada. They want 160,000, they want 1.6 million. All right, so let's see if they're on track here or what. They're telling me that there's a scheduled gross income of 105,000. Okay? And they're telling me that there's a net, there's expense is 35,000, right? You got me?
Yeah.
What am I missing off the top?
Vacancy factor.
Off the top.
5%.
All right, so they're automatically pulling my leg. You're pulling my leg, whoever you are. So, so therefore, if
Oh, we know exactly who he is. Scroll down. We got we already numbered everything.
you, all right. So, hey guys, what is this? What should the real NOI be?
Minus 5%.
95% of that was.
Well, you know why there's no vacancy there, right?
What?
There's
There's
a,
a times to
Yeah,
pay, there is no vacancy.
that's, yeah.
But if you go to get a loan on this property, the bank said
they're
there is a
gonna
vacancy.
request.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a vacancy.
Well, they're gonna get a cash offer then.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
but,
that's why it's missing because of where we're at now.
yeah, I understand, but this is a class.
Okay.
Good mind. All right, so 105. Only Jose, we
Objection.
105, well, let's see how far we're off, okay?
Right.
Because let's see if someone's gonna be crazy enough to pay cash for this. Let's see. So what, give me my vacancy, what is it?
5,256.
Okay, so subtract it from there, what do we come up with? This is where it gets fun.
99,864. Is that right?
That sounds about right to me.
Everybody's got it?
99,744.
Okay, so my,
99,864.
99,864.
okay. So what is 30% of that number? You get-
29,959.
Okay, so is he okay on his expenses?
Yeah,
He's fine
He's
on
good.
he's good with the expenses. So what's my real number here? Because this is not the real number. What's the real number?
it'll be 75 is actually better.
Can't be better.
75, 160, or let me see.
Missing space.
Oh, no.
I don't think it can be better unless somebody
Okay, let me
finds
see,
it out.
99
And you got 99
64
subtracted 35.
minus, oh, so you want me to use that number, the 35, okay, got it.
Yeah.
I was using one. 63,
63,879.
879. Oh, but then we didn't deduct it,
The vacancy,
then they put the vacancy factor on the.
Yeah, they did.
On the
that's
operating expense.
Yeah.
It comes out
Okay,
like
so
that.
it came out okay.
Right.
Yeah.
All right,
Exactly.
we're good, we're good. Okay.
Where is that
Hey,
neighborhood
you
that
wanna
they're
talk?
getting $1,700 per
It's
unit?
on Belmont.
You wanna look into the camera?
For the
for a
Orchid
second?
Beach?
You're good.
You're good. You did a good job.
$1,700
Go to the beach,
All right.
yeah, go to the beach.
Really?
crazy number.
Yeah,
Long-
Okay.
blocks from.
Gee,
Okay, so, hey, guys,
I'm living in the wrong neighborhood.
what's my
I'm
cap?
in the wrong neighborhood.
What's my cap rate? This is awesome. What's my cap rate?
So let me see.
So, because obviously, he came up with the right NOI, even though he didn't put his, he came up with the right NOI.
379, oh, yeah.
63,879.
Mhm.
So we got the cap rate and we got the price.
Price is what?
So,
1.6.
so we're at 63,879
I'm gonna help,
divided by the price, right?
I'm gonna help you guys out. There's your cheat sheet.
Divided by the price, 1.6.
So I'm looking for my cap rate.
3.9?
3.9%.
That's what I'm getting.
What did everybody come up with? How come Arizona always beats everybody? Okay, what is
I'm
it?
coming up with 3.9%.
3.9?
Almost 4.
What do we have?
3.9.
3.9. Is that a good deal?
Yeah?
Yeah. They'll get it. They'll get it, absolutely. They'll get it, 'cause that's, the 3.9, you haven't even taken depreciation yet, you haven't taken repairs yet, you haven't taken any deductions, you haven't taken principal reduction, you haven't,
Now,
Good deal.
if you go back,
You
to-
didn't take out vacancy.
no, we did take out vacancy.
it's already included, they included on the operating, on the, like, operating expenses. Now, if you go back on that property, it's probably a flip, they probably got it, they could raise everybody's rent, they fix it up, and that's why it's coming up like that. Can you
You
draw the
repeat-
picture, Mike, real
Let's
quick?
see, so Robert,
1.5% commission.
yeah, look at this, guys. 1.5.
1.5% commission.
Come on now, Robert.
Mike, could you repeat the other factors that haven't been taken into consideration?
Okay.
So we can repeat.
All right, guys, so right now, we agree we have 3.9% cap, right? Okay, from what we can see. But we haven't taken out the tax benefits of depreciation, right? You haven't taken off the tax benefit of repairs, right? What about your interest? Can you write that off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what about principal reduction?
What about principal reduction? What about that? What about those four things that's not even calculated in that cap rate?
Appreciation, right?
Okay, what about appreciation, that's number 5. So therefore, if you get a cap rate of 3.9, which is good, then you put that on top of it, good deal. You tell your client that's a good deal, at 1.6.
Mike, can you explain a little the cap rate compared to the rate of return?
Yeah, your rate of return is, what you do is that you take, okay, what happens is that you got your NOI, right? Okay, but after you have your NOI, you gotta take away what they call debt service. What is debt service?
Mortgage.
Mortgage.
Your mortgage payment. That's what it is. So you got your NOI, you take away your debt service, that leaves a number, whatever that number is. Then what you do, you divide that number into the amount of money that you've invested into the property. So therefore, at 1.6 million, how much is the down payment? I'll give you a hint, it's not 10%,
30, let's do 30.
about 30%, something like that, right? So what is that, Mr.
So
Gonzalez?
let's do it real quick, so
3 something.
let's see, 1.6.
480,000.
$480,000, okay. Now, who in here got Maricella's email to download Carl's mortgage calculator? Who did it? Okay.
I have
I got it because Rafi just sent it to me.
All right. Now, if whoever has Carl's mortgage calculator is a good one, because I like it because you can automatically put your PMI in there. You know what I'm saying?
Is
You
this
can
an
load
ad?
it in there and all of that other stuff.
Carl,
So let's
C or K?
Okay,
Okay.
Carl's mortgage calculator, do you have it, Roberta? You gotta get it now, because you know what, whenever you're doing an FHA deal, you have your PMI built in already in your, in the taxes. But let's do it real quick. So how much is the mortgage payment? This is interesting, how much is the mortgage payment?
We are,
$6,012.40.
which interest rate are you calculating?
5.
Okay, 5.
So is it realistic 5%?
Commercial?
Commercial maybe 5.5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But it's
Let's
a
say you have
class.
a good credit.
yeah, yeah.
Remember,
You know,
this is
'cause
a
remember,
class.
they're not, remember, they're not gonna
This is
give,
a class.
remember, they're not gonna give you that for 30 years, so it's not gonna happen.
Yeah,
Until those got 30
and also
years.
the property looks good, so then
Yeah,
that's even
so let's
better.
just say 5 for the sake of the class. So what is the mortgage payment, guys?
6,012.
2012.
6,012, okay. So what was my NOI?
Oh,
What's 3 points?
The NOI was,
How much?
63,879.
Okay, and what is my annual debt service?
let's see,
6,000. Oh,
What was my annual debt service?
72,144.
Okay, so what is that telling me straight off the bat?
Small profit,
No, switch the numbers.
What was the down payment?
say 480,000.
Well, first of all, before we go to the cash on cash return,
Yeah.
just let me know, is this does this property cash flow,
1.5.
does it break even, or are you in the negative?
cash flows.
Cash flows.
1.5.
From the numbers I've heard, you're in the negative, let's do it again.
I think it should be.
Let's do it again. Your debt service, which is the mortgage
Oh,
payment,
yeah, it's in the
is-
negative.
So from jump, this property is a negative cash flow property. From jump, right? Because what happens, you took your NOI, you took your mortgage payment, which is your debt service, that left you a number, right? And then, you took that from you took your debt service
Yeah,
from your NOI, right? Correct?
yeah,
Yes.
Okay, which left the negative, right? Is that correct?
correct.
Is everybody with me?
So, on
Is that
this,
right, Sean?
Right.
Show it?
yeah,
Okay.
so the bank is gonna require to put more money down if you wanna finance the deal.
That's right, because there's one other thing that I gotta tell you guys about, and we'll go through it in the next session. It's called the DCR.
Yeah,
What the bank is looking for
there's a 1.25.
is 1.25 DCR, which means the bank wants to see the income cover the debt plus 25%. So therefore, in this particular case, what can you tell the buyer? You can tell the buyer two things:
Bring more money
put more money
Or have more cash.
or offer less.
or offer less. That's about it. Put more money down or offer less. That's what it is. Okay? All right, you guys,
So, just to sum it up, when we first were looking at it, buyer, this is a good property. Now, you turn to buyer and say what?
no, it's a good
Still a good
property.
property.
It's
It's a good property
property.
if you buy cash.
Well, any property's good if you buy it.
Figure it out.
Yeah, but
Under the cash flow.
Is it a cash
So
flow?
this is interesting. The cap rate is good,
Right.
but your cash flow is non-existent. The cap rate is good, yeah, I'm good with the cap rate.
Your ROR.
But my cash flow is looking kind of crappy. Okay? So therefore, what I gotta do, I gotta lower the price, I gotta put more money down, okay? Now, when people you find investors buying this kind of property, they're not really putting down 30%, they're coming out of a 1031, they're doing something different, probably 50%,
Right.
or cashing it down, whatever, and they're not really concerned. But we know that 30% on this property will give me a good cap rate, but it's not gonna make me cash flow. Right.
Which some investors are fine with, just let my money sit, let it pay off, fine.
Yeah, because remember those other 5 things that,
Everything is-
yeah, I'm not even taking into consideration.
So the cash flow is not good, right? But the cash and cash consideration is good.
Well, I can tell you right now, if your cash flow is bad, then the cash
The
on
cash
cash
is
is not
bad,
gonna be good.
yeah.
That depends upon the situation of the buyer. If the buyer wants a tax shelter, if the buyer wants to use depreciation, if there are,
Right.
on cash, there are other elements as
Right.
well.
Future value, something's going up next to it.
Future
something's
value,
going- Yeah.
no maintenance for a few
Right.
years, there are elements that they may consider.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing that Mike is bringing up, which is very great, the value from real estate viewpoint is different from financing viewpoint.
Right.
So if he looks at the value from real estate, then that's a good value. But if the financing today is available to make it also a positive cash flow, may not be.
That's right.
Doesn't mean that doesn't have the value.
That's right, that's right. And one other thing I wanna leave with you guys too, in looking at that building, how much room for growth do you think there is?
Not much,
Not much.
Why is that?
it's already capped out.
Why is that?
Small.
Too small.
Small unit.
That's what you
No,
gotta look
the
at.
price.
You know, I'm pretty much at my ceiling right now because there's only about 400 square feet per unit. So therefore, I don't have a lot of room to move, and this is where I'm at, so.
Yeah, just by looking at it, that one has more
Right,
potential.
now look at this one right here. Now I'm at 3,100 square feet for 5 units.
600.
1.3.
Yeah,
Different.
it's a lot different, so therefore, maybe I have a little bit more room. It's in Belmont Park, which is the Graceville area.
They're all one bedrooms.
Is that right, guys?
Yep,
Is that pretty close to be right?
yep, it's
Okay.
actually low.
It's low?
It's
Okay.
low.
So you see how fast you guys are ripping this thing apart now? You know, once you got this, it becomes very easy to look at it and say, just off the top, you know what, this is low, all right? So let me see, did he give you, and this is gonna be the last one, then we're gonna call it for the day. Where's my expenses? Did he give you any expenses?
Yep,
Yeah.
Okay. So very quickly, is this right? Where's my vacancy factor here?
well, let's see if we include it into the,
Non-existent, so what is it? Raphael, real quick.
Well, we don't know that.
79.2 times 5%.
3960.
39.60?
Yes.
70.
3,000.
Yeah.
So it's 3,000.
Yes, 3,960.
960.
So, I'm sorry, so what is this number with my 5%?
Minus the 5%.
Yeah, so what should it be?
Minus 5.
7,900 minus the 5%.
75,240.
75,240. Give me 30% of 75,240.
22,572.
Is he off?
Mm,
Oh, he's off.
Yeah.
He's off. He's off 5,000.
5,000.
Straight off. So therefore, I'm suspect already because number one, he doesn't have his 5% in here. Number two, he's off. He's skimming. Okay? So what is my net operating income? What should it be? With the right numbers.
What if that owner's like me? I cut my,
there you go.
Said I gotta pay cash.
I cut my own grass, I do my own plumbing. Can we get a real world class?
You gotta teach that class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have him teach
Let
us
me go
that.
to one.
Okay, so what should I be at the net, at my NOI? Right now, I'm at about 75, and this should be about 22. Where should I be?
All right, let's see,
56.
I'll let you know right
Oh,
now.
about
48, 708.
50. No, it's about 56,
Yeah.
something like that. So look at the difference.
688.
7,000 is a lot of money, guys.
Yeah.
7,000 is a lot of money. Don't play it short. It's a lot of money. And what would happen is that would make this property go down significantly.
Yeah, 52,000, it's like a $10,000 difference.
That's right. So therefore, I can tell you straight off, instead of 1.39, you're about 995,000, something like that.
That's a great area right there.
Yeah.
You're gonna put an offer today.
Yeah. In order to make that work, okay? All right, guys, hey, listen, you've been awesome. Thank you so very much. For you guys on Facebook, if you'd like to join Realty Executives, all cities, please come and talk to me, Martina Linnell. We'll love to join you. Thank you, guys. You've been awesome. All right.
That's a good one.